Good morning. Good morning, Sint Maarten. What's up? It has been 12 months that passed, eh? 2022 gone. Boof. Like nothing happened. And we into 2023. Let me just hang around a minute and see if we're alive. And we are live. I had some difficulties getting on just now. It seems that when you tag people or too many people, it doesn't go well. So I hope my daughter is watching and she can start the tagging for me. But, 2022 was really a challenging year for many of us, including myself. Everyone has their personal issues to deal with. A lot of people had issues to deal with at work, job security, with the economy up and down, you don't know what's going to happen. Projects, people are not sure they want to invest in the country. For whatever reason it may be, 2022 was a challenging year. But we made it through 2022. And we are going to make it through 2023. But we will have our struggles, and I'll talk about that. Because I think it's very important that we understand where we are. But before we get into everything, let me, on behalf of my family, wish one and all a most wonderful new year. Let's work together to ensure that 2023 becomes our breakthrough year. Working together means listening to each other, compromising with each other. Not, I am the government and I am doing this. That hasn't worked for the past 3 years. It's not going to work in your last year. So I hope that you all listen to each other and work with each other. Let me also take some time out to wish the inmates at the Point Blanche prison, who in collaboration with the Climb Foundation and actually with the approval of the Minister of Justice, were able to increase their knowledge by carrying out courses, and they passed their exams late last year. But I think it was something that you can, bring out as a positive. They made mistakes in lives, and they are paying for that with their liberty. But at least they're making great use of their time by educating themselves. So when they come out, their fit into society becomes much easier because they have something now to do what they can do best. On a personal note, I was personally extremely happy to see that the Ministry of Romy will once again have its SG Lewis Brown back, whom won his appeals case against his dismissal by the minister, which in my opinion was pure BS. Sure, Mr. Brown was accused of dereliction of duty because Mr. Brown took the word of a lying minister as gospel. Instead of him asking to get it in writing, he took the good man's word and went to work with that. And when things were not turning out or panning out the way the minister wanted it, he said he never gave permission. Lewis Brown is lying. A commission was put together. The commission reviewed the facts and said we cannot state unequivocally that Mr. Brown had permission or that Mr. Brown was not given permission. They opted to dismiss Mr. Brown for that because of the Alegria water rights. That was the case. A case that started 2 ministers before and was just executed by the SG, who ensured that continuity in government found its way. And because a minister at this point in time in our law has the final say on who gets a piece of land or who gets water rights or whatever, is why you have these type of situations. The policy on how land was to be given out was to be finished a long time ago by the sitting minister. Up until this day, it's not done. It's not approved. Nothing is done in that section. Yet, an SG was fired. The court said, utter nonsense. The punishment does not fit the dereliction of duty. The good gentleman is good to go back and work. And by the way, in case you are planning to say that you have lost all trust in him, dying over Qaeda, because the law doesn't allow that. And by the way, ministers come and go. It's the civil servants that are there for the long haul. So I hope Mr. Brown goes back to work. God knows the Ministry of Romy seriously needs someone to guide that ministry. That ministry is now going left, right, center, up, down, and not because the civil servants want to do that, but because there's no leadership, there's no sense of direction right now in that ministry. And hopefully, Louis Brown, when he comes back, will do that. I worked with Mr. Brown for many years, and I will not say that what he was accused of was justified. Look, we all have our opinions, but when you make it this personal, then I think you're going on the wrong track. And they went on the wrong track with Louis Brown altogether. But again, envy makes people do bad things. This was one of them. So how is it possible that in Curacao, the Minister of Finance can find 1 million guilders so that the police can buy vehicles and much needed equipment? And in Sint Maarten, we can't find anything. I mean, there's so many things that we have been doing to the police right now with the tomfoolery sessions that I have to talk about it, because I wasn't going to touch justice. Because every time you touch justice, you show a weakness in the organization, you show a weakness in your country, and you put your safety at stake. But for God's sakes, when we are playing politics with the safety of this country, we need to expose this. And that's going to happen today. I'll get into it as we go down. But clearly, this government cannot prioritize its choices. A big party for $70,000 in the harbor was more important than, for example, buying 2 trucks and giving them to the police so they can carry out their work. It is simple. Yes, you want to say thank you to your civil servants that have worked hard during the year. Give them back their money. Give them back their 12.5%. Curacao doing it. Aruba doing it. The Dutch government told you you can do it, but you opted not to. Tomfoolery. Remember that word. Tomfoolery. But yes, it's clear that this government has made its choice. Party and pictures over safety of this country. Wednesday, you have all day on your broadcast to go run and say how bad I am doing this and that and blah, 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 blah. But in Curacao, the Council of Ministers, listen carefully, because they have the same law like we have. The Council of Ministers prepared a national decree, signed it off, so approved it, signed it off, and sent it to the governor for signature. Not to Parliament to discuss, but send it to the governor for ratification. And the minute the governor signs it, guess what happened to the 12.5% and the 25% law? Poof, it's gone. It's gone. We here talking about go to Parliament, go debate. Debate it for what? Debate it for what? We all know it's time for it to go. I voted for it. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say, oh God, no. I voted for it because I believed at that point in time it was needed. But we have passed that stage now. We have truly passed that stage. The people deserve to get back their money. Inflation is coming if we like it or not. And by cutting their salaries or whatever you cut in it, because you say, oh, but I didn't touch their salary. You touched their remuneration package. You took away their vacation allowance, what they used to pay school fees with. You took away the indexation they get yearly that helped them go through some of the storms that we are going through. So again, there are things that are happening, but we seem not to look outside of Sint Maarten to realize that the world continues moving. It continues. And we need to figure out why we are not moving. Because when you hear a prime minister say that for that apology to be accepted, that 12.5% must be gone, then you know we have a very serious problem. Then you honestly know we're in serious trouble as a country. Because if that's what's needed to accept an apology, then you have no clue what an apology is. But again, hopefully, 2023 will be a year of change, of determination, of collaboration, cooperation, compromise, whatever you want to call it. But if we don't get together as one, we are planning to fail. We truly are. We're going to need all hands on deck to get done what needs to be done. And that includes, I don't want to call them the opposition, because in government you have a ruling coalition and the balance of the members. And governing doesn't happen if you're in the coalition alone. Governing happens if you put your thoughts and your works ahead of you for your country. That's when you govern. When you see what's right, irrespective to which side of the fence you are on, that you support it and push it. And if that's not what you're there for, then you're there for the wrong reasons. It's that simple. Mr. Dick, Mr. Andrew Dick, let me thank you for recognizing my podcast as that I do every Monday as being very informative and keeping the people informed. Some people believe that I only bash the government, but at this point in time, in the position I am in, it is very difficult to hold them accountable any other way than I presently am doing. What I do is ensure that the information I get to give to you all is factually based. And some people believe that I shouldn't do that. I should just leave the mockery continue, the tomfoolery continue, but don't hold your breath for that. You might pass out before that. I think it's also important to see the IHA story coming to a circle closure. Now we know how much was paid. We know the lessons learned. We know that if you have to pay 3.5 million guilders, which is close to 1% of your budget, to run something like this, and you read that the insurance companies made about 3.5-4 million on this whole insurance and checks with COVID, maybe an afterthought would be, let us make sure that the new protocols, because we see already in China some rumbling has started, let's ensure that in the new protocols, the cost of running an EHAS department or temporary department is taken up in the insurance cost. So instead of $15, maybe $16-17 a visitor. And I think if you have 1 million visitors at $2, that's $2 million. That covers the 3.5 million. Maybe it needs to be $3. I don't know. But I think we now have some more data to be able to plan for the next calamity, because we will have them. So let us not do as if COVID is over, it's gone, and never come back. Please, let us not go down there. Let us not be that naive. Let us prepare for what is to come, and we see how we deal with that as it comes. Now, this is going to be a ticklish something I'm going to tell you now. But I need to understand from the Minister of Justice and the Governor, very particularly, how long are we planning to hold the 15 officers that were court mandated to the Governor and the Minister to sign off their decrees? I know that Minister, or the last report, media report I read, is that they are by the Governor. This is not something from today. This is not something from yesterday. This Governor came and met it, because there have been many court cases where the people won and the court said 1 week, 2 days, 10 days, and absolutely nothing happened, which would mean that fines would have been imposed on the government. by the courts. And where that money would have gone, nobody knows, as it ain't clear. When I say clear, clear to the public. Maybe those involved know exactly where the money going, but we don't know. Now, Sint Maarten has already lost 15 to 20 officers in the last 3 months. They left. They handed in their resignation and they said, to hell with this in Sint Maarten. They don't want to pay us. We gone. And the majority went back to Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, Stacia, but they gone. So we are short. Now we have another 15 here debating if they're going to get their decrees signed off so they can move on their job in the right way. But it doesn't stop there. It just simply doesn't stop there. In 2019, going into the elections, a lot of money was paid to officers. 50% of what was owed to them was paid to them, and the then minister made a killing at the polls. He did great. He was the biggest vote getter because the police came out and said, thank you. Thank you for taking care of us. 3 years later, same government, different minister, tomfoolery catch up in 2022. And they were now presented a plan for that other 50% and back pay and whatever will take 3 to 5 years to be paid. Now, normally I wouldn't have said too much, but this is craziness because these people were given a hard promise, December 20th, they were going to get their money. And I don't know if that was because things were looking bleak with the government and they were not sure if they could have controlled their aid that they started to make these type of promises. But you don't go from December 20th to 3 to 5 years. I don't understand that. If I have back taxes, anyone of you got back taxes, the minute they hit you that letter and you make a payment agreement, you got 7 months. After 7 months, they're taking things from you and auctioning them off because they said the law says so. So how is it possible that unilaterally the government decides the money I owe you, I'm going to pay you that in 3 to 5 years? This is crazy. Where are the unions? What agreements are you all making for your members? Now, I don't know what all is agreed upon. So that's why I make these statements. But if you all have information that you can give me, I am more than willing to discuss it. Look at it with you all and even give you advice where I can to ensure that there must be a better way to solve this police problem than it's presently being done. There's too much. Look, I know a lot of police officers, cordially, some of them are good friends, but I'll tell you this much, none of them are positive about the developments as they are going on right now. Many feel betrayed, many feel fooled. That's why the word tomfoolery came up. We need to do something better. We need to ensure that yes, you can make a payment plan. But just like how you do it with the taxes and you set a timeline of 7 months, the same should be done for these people. You cannot tell them 3 to 5 years. I'm sorry. That is going way, way overboard with the people's money. It's their money. You owe them that money. It isn't as if you're doing them a favor. That's their money. And it should be given to them. But again, I truly, truly hope that we can find a better solution than the one we have right now. When they started paying back their debt of $3 million, they started in October, I believe, and I think it's 15 months or 18 months and they'll be finished paying. And then hopefully the 7.95% of shares that the Dutch have, they will offset that once they regulate proper transportation for Saba and Stacia, with be it the ferry, be it another plane, whatever. Once they have that regulated, then they will get rid of their shares in Winnie. I hope the government is listening carefully, because if they are going to get rid of their shares, then government should be now already in gear to take over those shares and see what's best for Winnie, be it privatization, be it making it your national carrier, not only on paper but also in deed, and say, okay, how do I go from here? How do I expand, or how do I maintain Winnie? I think there are 100 plus people working there, so that you can guarantee some sort of continuity. Winnie has survived 60 years already, so it's going to survive a few more governments. I don't fear that, but I want to believe that it's maybe time that Winnie starts to own its own planes and everything, you know. After 60 years, I think they can start owning planes instead of only leasing planes. But again, I am no aviation expert. I won't pretend to be one. I don't fly planes. I don't own planes. So I'm going to leave it to that for now, even though I hear some of them had lots to say and lots to write. But when the time is right, we will check with that one. Don't worry. Don't feel left out. Solar and wind energy. I believe those are the new norms for 2023 in Sint Maarten. If we want to survive the fuel onslaught that's going to come around May, June, fuel is going to go through the roof. They're telling it to us from now. Maybe it's time that we start looking at, okay, where can we do solar? Can we do it in schools, government buildings, maybe by the airport, maybe by the harbor, maybe a collaboration between GB and various homes that people say, okay, listen, we would want to go into a program, be it a pilot program for solar on our roof, with a payment plan to GB, and GB deals with all the outside world. So the people, when they're dealing with the solar, they're dealing with GB. The same goes for wind energy. There's a lot of wind for free in Sint Maarten, comes out of the northeast. We all know that. Studies have been done, and the eastern flank of the island seems to be the best place to put your wind turbines. Now, wherever you put wind turbines, you can't really put people to live, because they do make noise. And if you put the bigger ones, the 1, 2, or 3 megawatt wind turbines, it means that the noise is going to be at a level that people shouldn't live there, or at least 500 meters away from there. But you know what can be done there? Agriculture. Plants don't get upset if there's a little squeaking going on up there. As long as they get in their water, the irrigation, the sunlight, they're good to go. They're good to go. So between the area of Guanabé and Point Blanche, there's a lot of open space there. That's the eastern flank that was checked by KEMA of the Netherlands and showed that the best wind is in that area. Now, why do I say this? Because at this point in time, there's nothing built there. And maybe, just maybe, if the government is truly interested in bringing wind energy to this island in collaboration with GB, that might be an area you want to look at, and then at the same time do agriculture. That is privately owned land. But guess what? I am sure if you talk to the people, there might be opportunities and possibilities to do a lot of things there. So don't say you didn't get the opportunity to do it. The question is, will you do it? In the Netherlands, they are surviving the gas crisis right now because of how they have made good use of solar and wind energy. Because of that, the Dutch will be able to survive the gas crisis and the diesel crisis if it comes moving forward. Because to heat it up, to heat up the place, you need gas normally. They are now turning it over into electricity. So they're using solar energy and they're using wind energy to heat up as many houses and public spaces as possible. So again, we have to look at it. Others in the kingdom are doing it. Sabre has a plant that is half of their electricity consumption is made by solar. Stacia, 24 hours they can run on solar if they so desire. So again, these things can be done. And no, Jacques, it isn't about until GB adjusts its profit over service approach. That's absolute nonsense. What has to happen at GB is that the government needs to put down a policy document. This is what our company is going to set out to do. We are going to introduce solar. It's not a request. Government can give direction to its company. It doesn't have to micromanage the company, but it can say, I want this done, I want that done. And once it's within the well-being of the country, the GB Board of Directors that are appointed by government will follow suit. We allow companies to go overboard because we put friends and family on boards and we can't tell them nothing. That's our problem. That's our problem. It's not that GB putting profit over service. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with us really creating a sense of direction and a policy for them. And once we have that, we anchor that down. Just like how we have a national energy policy, we can make a national energy law. The country gives GB a concession. In there you put things that are tied to the law. And then this hocus pocus nonsense is over. That's what it's all about. Now, what happened in the Netherlands this year? Report this morning, in the Telegraaf, the Ombudsman told the government of the Netherlands, you all have failed and failed drastically. You know why? Because you don't live up to your promises to your people. I think Sint Maarten government in that same boat. No ifs, no doubts about that. So the Museum of Sint Maarten. You know, why do I come and talk about the Museum of Sint Maarten today? Because I am deeply disturbed. I thought the Museum of Sint Maarten was going to be part of the new structure of the library together with the CMARC. Lo and behold, I was at the museum some time back there speaking to one of the employees to only come and find out that the museum is no longer part and parcel of the new library. They're out. Now, why? I don't know. And I didn't get all that information. But what is important is that they're out. They're right now in a little shop down there in the Spatians Arcade, that area there. They're in one of those little places there. We have a courthouse in the center of town where we prefer to parade all the prisoners in front of all the tourists and us so that we could take pictures and everybody could see who going to court and who coming out of court, so you could put it on the front page of a newspaper. Instead of making that the museum, and the courthouse will then serve to share our history and our heritage instead of handing down sentences on people for their misfortunes. That courthouse is our icon on our flag. We have to understand the value of the museum. I know we don't, because half of us don't even know our heritage, more or less our history. But we speak of slavery. Let me get very serious with all of it. You see that big parking lot beside the government there? That used to be government land. They gave it to APS. Look at that. Oh, APS a lot of money. So they gave it to APS in a spin-off of I owe you, now I give you this, so I owe you less. Something in that sense. The Justice Wing was supposed to come in the area of the new government building, actually behind where TLM was. And they said, let's take over the TLM building, let TLM go to most probably Cahill in that area, buy a piece of land, we put them down there, and we would put the justice wing behind there. Now, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. So, where do we go from here? Now, you have the parking lot. You have the parking lot there still. You can build on that parking lot a few levels so you have proper parking. And if you look by Public Works, there's over 40,000 square meters of land where the waste to energy plant was to go. That they said they ain't worrying about no more and they're going to do everything up on the landfill, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? The Justice Wing ain't getting built. We continuously renting from people. Go to APS. Make an agreement with APS, just like you did with SZV, that they will build the building and you will rent the building. You're a great renter. You pay rent to everybody in Sint Maarten. There was a time, I think, we were renting 100 buildings. Tenants in Sint Maarten were getting rich off of government renting because government wasn't investing in their own infrastructure. So, if we build, right here on Palm Island, a proper justice building with an attachment as the courthouse, where the proper security is put in place, and you don't have to be putting snipers on top of roofs in Phillipsburg and Torresine police officers on roofs with guns. You know, we are living in 2023, not in the 1864 Wild Wild West. So maybe, just maybe, in 2023, we can start thinking out of the box on how to fix these things. APS is sitting on a ton load of money that they can never their money if they want to continue moving forward on a positive balance. And this is not a $5 million project. This is a decent 30 to 40 million guilder project. And it can be done. We have the companies here. We have the people to build it here. We have the architects to design it here. It can be done. What we need to do is agree to do it. That's how I see these things. Because at the end of the day, we need a museum and a place that we all can cherish. And what better place than to take the old courthouse and make that the Museum of Sint Maarten? Because if there's one place that has history, it's the courthouse. It's there from back in the 17th, 18th century. So it does have history. It's one of the oldest buildings in this country, actually. So we can transform it into what it needs to be. A great museum for Sint Maarten, for its people and for its visitors. So again, if we do that, and we put the Justice Wing down here, and we put the courthouse down here on Palm Island, I think we are doing this country a great, great justice. Tolerance policy and the eventual legalization. I spoke to a few people that were going to do the request for proposal that was put out in the media by the government. And what I found, and I said it then, is that that request for proposal is an extremely complicated something. And the studies that we are asking for, in my opinion, exist already in the Netherlands and most probably in other parts of the world. And I think we just going to do something that we shouldn't be doing. We should more look at how we can maneuver with the tolerance policy for now, while we get ready to look at how we can legalize the production and sale of marijuana. Now, again, I know there are people saying, listen, we don't agree with the sales of marijuana. I agree with you. Listen, this is a democracy we live in. This is a democracy. There are a lot of things that happen today that I don't like. But you know what? If we have to only do things that we like, then we will never do nothing. Because there's always somebody or a group of people that don't like what's happening. So again, we need to either say we're going to move on or we're not going to move on. If we're not going to move on, it means that we have chosen to continue promoting illegality instead of trying to curb illegality and make an income off of that illegality. Because in the Netherlands, the tolerance policy is tied to the coffee shops, it's tied to the cultivation of weed, it's tied to the distribution of weed, and it's tied to the retailing of the weed in the coffee shops. Make no mistake, please understand what we are talking about. This is a multi-billion euro industry in the Netherlands. And do you have medical problems? Yes, you will. Do you have psychological problems? Yes, you will. Do we have them now? Yes, we do. The difference is, if this is tolerated and legalized in a sense of, okay, you're going to pay taxes on it too, and you're going to do this too, and you're going to do that too, you have an opportunity to also channel some of those funds that are made there for medical resources and medical purposes. Right now, you have nothing to send any place. And yes, I agree with your shoes. I know they vary per municipality, and we just have to look at a municipality that caters to our cultures. Because again, you know, carbon copying everything is not always the best thing to do. Let's try to see what's best for us as country and move on. Again, like I said, from day one, this is something where we are going to, you know, we speak of entrepreneurships, and we believe that cultivating, distributing, and retailing weed is a crime. It is right now, but it can be tolerated if it is done the right way, like it is done in the Netherlands. Because in the Netherlands, they cultivate weed, they have grow houses, legal grow houses with cameras from the police in there, and the committees that go and check how much is grown, what strains are grown, etc. These things exist. We should not pretend in Sint Maarten as if we are doing something so illegal. It's happening now in Antigua. It's happening in Grenada. St. Lucia is going with it. St. Kitts is going with it. All throughout the US away, they're dealing with it. Mexico is dealing with it. But we ask them for requests for proposal and studies to be done. This is craziness. This is outright craziness. But again, to all their thing. I will continue promoting it. I believe it's a good financial pillar, and it reduces filling the jail cells unnecessarily and taking away a future of a youngster that was picked up with some marijuana. For God's sakes, Biden has just decided with a federal decree that he is going to release the prisoners throughout America that have been incarcerated for an X amount of marijuana. Since I like to follow the good old US of A, maybe go look at it there. Again, when I started with this last election, because I campaigned on this and I pushed from the day I got into Parliament, I have been talking to the Ministers of Justice about this. I've written letters, I have called, I've asked, and I've always said, please make this a priority. Don't put it on the list. Make it a priority. Because there are a lot of people that are in this business. And at this point in time, it's a hustle. And if we make this something legal, they will make their money and pay their fair share of taxes. We all talk about leave everybody pay their fair share. But here you have the opportunity, but you turn a blind eye. We play game because Bancampo brought it up, so let me see how we can stall this thing. This is crazy. You don't have to do it for me. I don't sell weed. I don't smoke weed. Do it for those that have made a livelihood out of it. Because if you like it or not, they're going to continue doing it. The difference is we got to put it over there in point blank for $150 a day, if not more now. So you see, we got to think proactive, not reactive. That's the mistake we make. And I'll tell you something. The weed industry will make enough money to support the agriculture industry hands down. You talk about food sustainability? Here's your option. Here's an opportunity to have it done. Instead of only whining and crying, make use of these opportunities. The people can work with you. This is not about politics all the time. This is about people's livelihoods are now going to be structurally regulated. So it's not a hustle, but it's a business. You can understand when you have some co-ops that suddenly start to exist in neighborhoods, and the guys, them, instead of fighting each other, ripping off each other, are now working with each other. That's what it means. But if you don't come from the streets, it's difficult to understand the streets. That's unfortunate. But again, let me say this. Whatever comes out of this, this must remain local. They see nothing to bring in big money from other countries and put them at the front and then take a little local boy and put him at the front. They're going to end up wrong. Because the fellas, them, that are working out there right now ain't going to roll over play dead. They're not going to. And don't see this as a threat. See this as a good piece of advice. So when you're making your decisions, you understand the consequences. You know, I've always said, if we want something done, we must do it ourselves. We should stop waiting for people to do things for us. If we want to make our people wealthy, we should do that ourselves and stop waiting for others to come here and make our people wealthy. This is a great opportunity, people. This one is a great opportunity. We must do this to move forward. We honestly must. And if we don't, we will miss a great opportunity, and 5 years from now we're going to do it. Then we will do it because it is then normal. But if you don't take risk, you don't get that good worm. You'll get the one of the can. When they start importing it because it's normal throughout the Caribbean. Then we will be importing weed from one of the other islands. Because we were oh so concerned. You see, we gotta stop living in that world, because if we don't stop living in that world, we are never going to live in the real world. Now, I'll tell you a joke. I was following in Curacao, is that we put a lien on doctors, psychologists, and specialists for outstanding debts. They said they owe them money, so they put a lien on them. People can't pay their regular bills anymore, and some of them wondering if they can even open their office come the new year. I think today and tomorrow will tell us what really happened. But, like I said, we'll see. I also, let me say, I'm extremely happy that the higher education law is finally going to Parliament for ratification. I want to thank all the ministers, previous ministers, education department staff that worked diligently on this, so that once and for all now, higher education will have a better way of being supported financially, because the laws, the necessary laws, are now in place. So the University of Sint Maarten will be able to get the proper funding, and I think the legal tax bases are now all in place. Now, before I close off on this section here, there was a war of words between MP Emmanuel and Minister Duran, and you know, this had to do with who put the Irma dump there. Who created the Irma dump, the biggest travesty of the 20th century? Now, I heard the minister on the Super Duper show, I think it was, the last interview of the year, something like that, they dub it. And basically, he laid the blame directly in the shoes of Minister Emmanuel. And I smiled, I laughed a little bit. And the next day, naturally, as would be predictable, MP Emmanuel answered. And I think what was written is exactly what happened. When we had Hurricane Irma, let me just refresh you all's memory. September 2017, 6th, we were ravished by Irma. The amount of garbage that was compiled was abnormal. We created what we call satellite landfills all over the island. We had satellite landfills, about 6 of them, which means all the steel, the greenery, construction material, whatever, we were piling it up in areas, in certain areas, like by the ball field, by where Kim Shah is today, the parking lot. The parking lot was used, for example. We were down in Middle Region, in Soccer Garden. We had them piled up all over. Why was that? Because the landfill was not usable. The landfill itself was in a lot of trouble after the hurricane. And we had too much of garbage. In EOC, we had to propose alternative landfills because they were going to be temporary landfills. Listen carefully. I want to use the word again. Temporary landfills. The head of the EOC was the Prime Minister, today MP William Allen, then Prime Minister of the country and Chair of the EOC. I worked personally with MP Allen. I know the pressures that were there. You all can remember the first 3-4 days of riots and looting and all that eventually they used to take down the Prime Minister. You all tend to forget things. In January, I think MP Emmanuel, the then minister, was gone. So was the sitting Council of Ministers that had also in finance Minister Gibson, education, the now sitting Prime Minister Sylvia Jacobs. So, you know, I'm saying this to say, if you don't know what happened, stop talking stupidness. If you want to blame MP Emmanuel for things, blame him for what he did. I was there with that landfill. I worked that landfill. I saw the fires on that landfill. So don't come and talk stupidness about the truth will come to light. You're damn right they're going to come to light. Because you have no clue what you're talking about. You see, you all play politics with everything. That landfill was to be moved. But hopefully when Lewis Brown gets back into office, he can explain that to you. Because the World Bank tried its utmost when I was sitting in there to tell us that landfill ain't moving, and I told them, you all crazy. The monies were put there to move the Irma dump. They opted because it was burning. And they flew over, they brought people from the States here, how we had to rip open the landfill and fight the fire, and then we can move it and clean it up. If you don't know the history, let me give it to you. Go and read the documents. It'll do you good, because then you'll understand the nonsense you were spewing on Super Show. Unfortunately, your story is a hoax. But let me move on, because I don't want to waste my time trying to teach you something that you don't want to learn. You have no clue about waste management and you don't want to learn about it. You prefer to follow blindly what is given to you. And that is unfortunate. That's why Lewis Brown has to come back very fast. But again, like I said, there's a history to it, and the history is not what you said. I think Emmanuel was much closer to the history of what really went down there. Our quest for an apology and reparations. Now, I can recall there was on the 19th of December, there were some people that came, a minister came from Holland, the Prime Minister from Holland, Rutte, he gave a speech from the National Archives about the slavery and the apology. And there was a panel discussion in Sint Maarten, and our Prime Minister was at that discussion, and she stood very strongly and she spoke very determined. And there were one or two people that I know that are not supporting the government said, if we had a prime minister like that from the start, we wouldn't be in this boat today. And they were referring to the laws and taking the money and etc., etc. And I laughed when I said, you know, I didn't hear the speech at that point in time, so I will reserve my comments for later down the road. But, you know, what kept bothering me was, and I spoke to somebody that was close to the Prime Minister, and he said, you know what bothered me was tying the apology, first of all, to the 12.5%. I never understood that. Because what they did not do, or what the Prime Minister did not do, and that's what caught me, was why didn't she say, okay, you know, listen, this apology, there's a, like she said, there's a 10-step process from the Curacao group, and they want to put a committee together, and that committee should look at what all needs to be in place for accepting of the apology. Now, look, if you accept the apology and not the apology has been given, there ain't gonna be no rerun on this apology. They have given the apology, you could take it or leave it. But what I found interesting is that while we talk about the 12.5%, we didn't talk about the charter. We know the charter is full of flaws, but we didn't talk about that. You know, why we didn't talk about there will be no more governor, or we don't want no more Dutch government appointed governor by the king. We want to appoint our own governor, which means the charter would have to change. Otherwise, we can't accept no apology. I didn't hear that one. You know, I didn't hear if the CFT isn't moved, which has us at this point in time financially enslaved to the Dutch. We can't accept your apology. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear those things. This is what bothered me. I didn't hear them. I didn't hear that our judicial system should reflect us. I didn't hear that. You know, there were different things that were said, and it made me think that today the Prime Minister of the Netherlands jumps up and says, I had it wrong from the beginning. I had it all wrong. I didn't understand it. You didn't understand it? Sir, you're a very intelligent man. You know what slavery was. Because at this point in time in the Netherlands, we just went through the Toeslagen affair that caused the Rutte tree their neck as government. Then, in Home Affairs now, a whole new 110-page report came out about systemic discrimination. Not against white people, against colored people. Slavery didn't entail white people being in shackles. It was colored people. We got to be cautious people when we start to talk about things and we don't check all the angles. I was bothered when I heard them talk, and mind you, in 2023 there are elections in the Netherlands. So what needs to be said now will be said, will be played, and after that things go back to normal. You gotta ask yourself this question. I don't know if you all listened carefully to the speech. There was this one word that I could not find in the speech. Now, mind you, I listened to MP Westcott too. she wrote a piece about it. And I believe she made some good points. She noted that the apology stage is past, yeah. I'm sure we all have to do that, and it won't be redone. So I think that was good. But what I liked more was where she asked, so we reach the stage of what now? And that's going to be the interesting one. What now? Because when you listen to the speech, you will, we're talking about moving forward. And you're hearing cries of strengthening the kingdom, unity, support, recompense, understanding, tolerance, respect, knowledge. All great words. But you know which word I missed? Equality. I did not hear the word equal, equality. I didn't hear it. At no point in time did narrator nor the king use that word. And if we are not equal, then we cannot be having that discussion. That simple it is for me. And I don't need you all to share my opinion. All I want you to do is understand it. Even if you don't respect it, just understand where I'm coming from. You see, that we're going to have a formal committee made up to deal with the recommendations of the Slavery Dialogue Group. Yeah, look, that report is there for a year already. When we had to participate, we didn't participate. And I think the Minister Plenipotentiary was partially the one participating on behalf of the people of Sint Maarten. The Minister Plenipotentiary is a mouthpiece for the Prime Minister, not for the people of Sint Maarten. The people of Sint Maarten are represented by the Parliament of Sint Maarten, whom they elected. The government is an appointed body that carries the support of the Parliament, not the other way around. You understand why things just go wrong? These are the reasons they go wrong. You know, my issue with this whole matter is I don't believe we really know what we want, nor who a Sint Maartener truly is, so that we can have a good discussion on how we're going to move forward. Instead, a handful of people are discussing this matter instead of having a very broad dialogue with the population. Look, this approach ain't gonna work. This is a very ticklish something for some people. For other people, you know, some of us have taken the stance, it wasn't me in chains. It wasn't me that was being beaten. It wasn't me that was undernourished or malfed. But guess what? Those things have consequences today. And again, we need to understand what those consequences are. Because that malnutrition has led in the Caribbean to a significant high number in diabetes. Our education is not up to par. Our socio-economic situation, our poverty is not up to par. It is, we are not reaping the benefits we should have reaped as a kingdom partner, as an equal kingdom partner, as the others are reaping. We need to understand a few things. We need to understand that, for example, the date of December 19th was a very specific date chosen because it had meaning for the Netherlands. That is the birth date of the Prince of Orange and Heer van Diesel, Philips Willem, born on the 19th of December, 1554. This good gentleman was the one that introduced slavery to the islands. So, to now say we're going to accept it, we will accept it on his birthday. Is that slap in our face? I don't know. Not that I really worry too much. But I believe that nothing is done just like that. Everything has a reason for it to be done. And I agree that those today are not responsible personally for slavery. Not even their parents are. Maybe their great parents or their great great parents might have been involved. But what is important though is that we understand that as long as discrimination is ongoing in the kingdom, this discussion isn't going to have the right footing to move ahead. I think we need to look at this and see how this works, because discrimination is very big still in the Netherlands, especially in the government agencies and even in the courts. So yes, we have a very long way to go. I agree with you all wholeheartedly. We have a very, very long way to go. Now, look, I think when you look at, and I think it was a former Prime Minister of the Netherlands Antilles, Suzy Camilla Reumer, she summed it up a little different. She said scientific research has shown that the following must be included when addressing the consequences of slavery: discrepancies in socio-economic prospects, poverty, outdated education, certain chronic diseases, lack of research into history from a non-Eurocentric point of view, negative self-image, etc. Now, I had touched one or two of them, but I think this gives you a mouthful of what should be looked at, what has to be included, depending on our situation also in Sint Maarten, and how we can deal with it. Like I say, today, the heirs of the people responsible for slavery enjoy the prosperity of Europe. Some of that comes from the wealth gained through colonialism and slavery. So indeed, we have a long way to go to make that equal. And I'm going to use that word until the end. Elections 2023, they're in the air. I was going to discuss some things today, but I believe I will wait a week or two before I really touch elections 2023, because it's going to be fun. What I have to say is really going to be fun. But something that caught my eye, and this is something that's playing off in the Netherlands now, very big, America also, but here in Sint Maarten also, the woke phenomenon. And basically woke means alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. But I want to bring it back into what's happening with our young children. In America, if you all can recall, in Florida, the governor vetoed and brought a law into life where you cannot talk to little children of a certain age, I believe under the age of 10, about sex change. Because this seems to be the new thing, that we want to talk about sex change to children. Are you in the right body? So a girl is born, are you in the right body, or should you have been a boy? Or vice versa. In the Netherlands, it got quite bad, where young girls, ages of 15, 16, started amputating their breasts because they thought they were a boy, or they wanted to be a boy. And then after the fact realized this was just a hysteria, a hype, a woke. And that's not what I really am, I want to be. Now again, I am no specialist, and this is a very difficult field to maneuver in, and I'm not going to try to maneuver in it. But I just thought it was important to bring to light this problem, because I'm sure this problem plays out in Sint Maarten also. The difference is we consider these things taboo. So we're going to talk about it like a shame in the family, or this or that. It is not. This is a worldwide problem, people. And we got to deal with it for what it is. Again, like I said, telling yourself that your child is crazy or whatever it be, that's not the answer. Telling your child you are this or you are that is not the answer. But the don't have that answer. But I found it so important to bring up because in the States, they started dealing with it. The governor of Florida said, this craziness is not going to happen in Florida as long as I'm the governor. And he blocked it. In the Netherlands, they're having a big problem with it. And you see, you have to look at it from the different angles. In St. Maarten, we don't talk about it. But now the courts have said, listen, same-sex marriage is okay. It can be registered and it should be recognized. So I think the doors are going to open for this discussion just now. We need to understand the discussion to have this discussion. That's all I'm trying to bring out here today. If you don't understand it, it's going to be difficult. You know, the human rights aspect and the right of choice are becoming more and more prominent in the world today, and change is going to be inevitable. So either we're going to work along or become a stumbling block because of tradition. And I think we have passed the stage of tradition in the world of today. So, you know, this is going to come up, be it this year, be it next year, and then we should have a plan in place on how to deal with this, how to get the awareness and the campaigns. How do these discussions take place? Do we train people to have these discussions in classrooms, etc., etc., etc.? These are things that we gotta really look at. The euro, will it survive in 2023? And will the Netherlands keep the euro as their currency? Now, there are different thoughts if the euro will survive in 2023, because it will continue to lose some value. The decisions are being taken basically in Brussels on what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. Committees are formed in Brussels and powers are taken out of the countries, especially the Netherlands as one of the richest countries in the EU, and placed in Brussels. And there are now a lot of movements in the Netherlands that are growing, that are saying, stop it. We don't need to be part of Brussels. We don't need to continue dumping billions into funds that are not really helping the Netherlands. Are the Netherlands on their way out, just like England in a Brexit, in an exit now? I don't think we're there yet. But I think the thoughts are starting to head that direction, because the Netherlands, at the end of the day, they're a business-oriented country. And they will do what's best for them. I agree, they are part of the institution of the Eurozone. But I think they're getting tired of always footing the bill, and they're not really enjoying it. Now, why do I say always footing the bill? The pension funds in the Netherlands, their wealth dropped significantly in the past few years. The wealth of the pension funds in the Netherlands was 1,800 trillion euros. You heard me right. 1,800 trillion euros. It dropped to 1,400 trillion euros. And all of these assets are held by Big Pharma, the big companies, oil and all of them. But some of them are now getting out of it because things are getting rough. The problem is, the savings account of the Netherlands is 442 trillion euros, making them one of the richest countries, wealthiest countries in Europe. And definitely in Brussels, they don't have the final say. So that's why they're getting a little ticklish now with the way things are going in Brussels. It's costing them a lot of money. So again, I don't know what's going to happen. I agree with you, Shoes. They're going to have to cut down the European Union's power in the committees. Otherwise, the countries cannot continue working the way they are working right now in the European Union. It just ain't going to work. But you see, if this happens, does it have any consequences for for us, the Cas Islands, the Best Islands? I think the biggest thing that we will lose out on would be European funded, EDF funded projects that we won't be able to tap into just like that, but we will be able to tap in to maybe other programs that other Caribbean islands I know have been tapping in through the European Development Fund. It won't be the way we have it now, but I'm sure there will be something else for us. Our tax-free salaries, like what's happening in Saint-Stacia and Bonaire, there's going to be a tax-free salary increase with 40%. They're going from $12,500, give and take, to approximately $17,500 per year in the best islands. So if your total salary is less than 2,625 guilders a month, you don't pay salary in Saint-Stacia or Bonaire. Now it sounds like a lot, but the cost of living in those islands is also in dollars and not in guilders. So the way I gave you that, the 2,600, that's a little less than $1,500 a month. Now, if we would use that number, and I'm just now speaking a little hypothetically, if you would use that number for the pension, that you say, people that earn a pension of 2,625 will not, or less, will not be taxed. I am just using this right now because I hope that the SER will give us the livable wage. And with that livable wage, we would be able to do something more and see how we can help the seniors moving forward in 2023. Again, this minimum wage or this tax-free salary is based on the highest minimum wage in the best islands. Because remember, the three best islands have three different minimum wages. They also got different minimum wages and different livable wages. Each island to his own. The difference with, for example, the best though, and that's different to us, the best has two tax tariffs. Anything over $17,500 up to and including the amount of $281,972, you pay 30.4% taxes. They've always paid that. They only moved up the brackets now to 17,326 and 281,000. If you earn more than 281,000, you pay 35.4%. Those are the two tax brackets they have in the best. We have a whole different tax system because we have one that it works in increments. I think there are 150 tables, depending in which brackets you fall, and they really break it down in the thousands of guilders or hundreds of guilders. So that's a whole different story. But again, that is one of the simplifications, hopefully, that will come with the tax reform in Sint Maarten, that we would, we will have something like that. Not just the two, but I think if we say our livable wage is going to be around 3,000 guilders for a mother and two children, give and take like what happened in Curacao with the SERS calculations, and where the the Minister of Social Affairs in Curacao wants to force that through, and I'll talk about it just right now after this, you will realize that we still have a long way to go. We really have a long way to go to see how we're going to do this. But again, the question is, did SER already bring the minimum wage for us, or the livable wage for us? Do we have a new one on that? Because what I'm going to tell you now might just irk you based on what I just said. In Curacao, the minister's wish to move the minimum wage to 13 guilders and 67 cents per hour instead of 10 guilders 70 per hour is an unrealistic wish, says the SER of Curacao. But this was calculated by SER. SER said for a single parent family with two children, the minimum wage needs to be 13 guilders and 67 cents per hour for a 40-hour work week. But the country cannot afford that. The country can afford 10 guilders and 70 cents in a two-prong payment from 9 guilders 62 that it presently is. The 9 guilders 62 is where we are going to now come January 1st. St. Maarten is more expensive than Curacao to live. And we are now going from 8 guilders 84 to 9 guilders 62, I believe. And Curacao is going from 9 guilders 62 to 10 guilders 70 come January 1st also. But the minister wants to go to 13 guilders and 67 cents because she said, and I want to look for it precisely, in her view, this is intended to ensure that a part of the working population who lives below the poverty line can benefit from the relative prosperity, and that by means of a minimum wage adjustment, the employment rate of economically inactive people can possibly be promoted. Now, that naturally means that the increase that the minister proposed from 9 guilders 62 to 13 guilders and 67 cents is wishful thinking. They can't afford it according to the SER and according to the business community and even by extension the unions. They believe that Curacao will be put in a very uncompetitive business position because your wage, your hourly wage, especially in the hotel sector, would become $7.51 per hour, which would mean that your cost, your business cost will skyrocket through the roof, or they will release a lot of people working for them to ensure that they can still cover the new cost and create more unemployment, which government will then have to pay for in the sense of understand. They have to pay understand. Now remember, the minimum wage, when you increase it, it means that you don't pay taxes on minimum wage. So the government will not be getting in any additional money, but most probably will be giving out more money because the business community is going to lay off people to be able to keep their heads above water with the new minimum wage. And remember, that new minimum wage is going to create people that were earning more than minimum wage. Are going to say, well, listen, if you're going to increase minimum wage, you got to increase my salary too because I was working above minimum wage. Why am I now minimum wage? So you see, it's that whole discussion that maybe the country ain't ready for right now. But like I said, you have to look at it from the perspective also of those in the boat of minimum wage, because it's easy to talk about minimum wage when you are not a minimum wage earner. It's very easy to say, well, yeah, the business is going to get mashed up, the economy going to get mashed up. Yeah, well then, why should I not get a decent wage and live above the poverty line as a minimum wage earner so that the big cats can continue eating and drinking the way they are today? You see, it's a two-way street when you're having this type of discussion. And you got to be honest with yourself at the end of the day. So it is going to be a ticklish something to see how this is going to work out. But like I said, the advisory body, which had in the trade union people and the industry, warned of the deterioration of the competitive position of Curacao. Making the labor market so expensive would mean that the product that they are selling becomes too expensive, and most probably, if tourism is one of the driving factors, they will find other islands to go to that will be cheaper for the people that are there. So again, this is something that will is going to take a while to look at. But what I am going to come back on in another episode is to show that a tourism-based economy is basically the reason that your country runs on such a big percentage of minimum wage earners. The industry doesn't lend itself to high salaries. It has to be broken down, and there are ways that the salaries can go up, but it would mean that certain sacrifices will have to be made. And this is something that, again, putting politics aside and putting the country first and not your re-election or election, that you say these are the realities that we will have to deal with. And by grabbing the bull by the horns, we might be able to salvage something yet. And that's what I'm going to come back on. Because today's tourism economy is only creating minimum wage earners. And we cannot take out of this whole loop the role of the undocumented workers in the country, taking jobs or working for less than minimum wage, and then yet sending most of that money abroad to maintain their families. These are things that I am going to be doing a little more research on, putting it in a different package and bring it to us. Now, 2023, what should we really expect from 2023? I think 2022, we had a lot of deceit, a lot of shortcomings. Seniors, less fortunate people, very often even the middle class. So when we look ahead at 2023, we got to ask ourselves a few things. What can we expect? Will we have a budget 2023 that will be balanced? Will we have one? I sincerely don't think so. I truly don't believe we're going to have a balanced budget. And that has to do with the loans that we have. And at this point in time, still no agreements with the Netherlands on, okay, so you're going to give me some breaks in this liquidity support loans, these bullet loans that you gave me that are maturing now in October 2023. What's going to happen? Because up until present, the Minister of Finance doesn't have an offer from the Dutch on, okay, we're going to refinance it 10 years from now. There is nothing. Then you had the whole Grisha Heiliger loan possibilities that wasn't so. And again, we need to get something more structured. IMF said Sint Maarten will have a balanced budget in 2026, not before that. How is it that we are now talking about 2023, that we're going to have a balanced budget? The Council of Ministers in the Netherlands says they agree with the CFT, we must have a balanced budget, etc., 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 but nobody is making any kind of arrangements for the 240 million guilders we have in outstanding loans that are due in October 2023. Because basically this is how you are kept financially in check by the Dutch. And yeah, how would I say, you can't do nothing because you owe them money. You always remain in their clutches. Again, will the projects, the backlog projects by NRPP, especially when it comes to schools, especially when it comes to homes, the infrastructure, the Link 6, are these things going to finish now this year? Are we going to do something finally to get these things out? Or we're going to be in 2024 still looking at, what's going to go on and what's going to happen there. Look, we need to understand that we're going to the polls this year. Be it in November, be it throughout the Christmas season, and then we vote in January 8th, I think it was. Last time we voted on the 8th or the 9th. Look, whatever it is, 2023 is the election year. There are going to be a lot of promises, a lot of unrealistic promises, all kind of crazy things we're going to promise. A lot of things we're going to talk about that we know can't happen, but it sounds good, so let's talk about it. Let's hope the people gobble it up and throw the vote my way. These are things that we got to be cautious with this year. We got to be extremely careful. We are going from a parliament of 15 to 17. So you're going to start seeing jockeying of position within the parties, within the new parties, the reactivated parties, whatever. We're going to have elections. Most probably 6 parties will go to the polls. If each of them takes the 25 people that they are allowed to, you have 150 candidates that you can choose from, and I'm sure we can find 17 that can do the job and put Sint Maarten first and move forward. But in this same year, one of the things that's going to take the forefront in many discussions is a referendum on independence, status quo, completion of our autonomy, or whatever status we choose to discuss and have a referendum on. We're supposed to have a roundtable conference with the Dutch to see where we're going from here. You know, we have the dispute regulation, but nor here nor there. A charter that nor here nor there. We all know it ain't no good, but yet we all go along to get along with it. So you see, 2023, there should be some sort of statement from the population that this is what we want, this is what you have to do when you get into government in 2024. Because not much going to happen this year after a referendum than preparing for the new government to come in 2024 or 2023 self. So again, like I said, we're gonna have some things to do. Let's hope that the civil servants and the politicians get back their monies and their things are regulated for them the way they were. I hope that this country finds it a priority to talk to the Netherlands, be it directly, be it through BZK, be it through the trust fund, that an injection of monies are made available through the trust fund or through BZK to GB to start a solar farm, solar rooftop program in conjunction with companies on the island, wind energy. Start the discussion, try to come to some sort of agreements that it ain't all gonna happen in 2023. But if we lay the foundation in 2023, the execution can be in 2024 or 2025. But we have to start it. We can't just talk about it. We really gotta start it. Maybe have a national committee put together for the reviewing of the national energy policy and see how alternative energy can be incorporated, not as a wish, but as a requirement for a utility company to move forward. In their concession, they had to be already supplying alternative energy, and none of the ministers have made it their business to force GB's hand on this. And for the past 5 years, GB has been able to hide in the aftermath of Irma. But that has passed on. We have passed that stage. We got to start talking about alternative energy now, and GB has to get on board with that, and they have to get on board with it fast. Because if we want to talk about self-reliance and resiliency, then we need to ensure that we are not relying on fossil fuel. That we can say, okay, hey, we got 50-60% of our net in alternative energies, and worst case scenario when there's nothing, we can do some load shedding, but we could give everybody light. Because when there's no fuel, we give nobody light. That's what it is. This is the self-reliance and the resiliency that we have to create in this country, and we can. We can truly do it, but we need to want to do this. You understand? This is what I'm talking about. In 2023, if agriculture is not going to take its rightful place and proper monies are going to be invested in agriculture, taking a step up at the plate and start to really do its job as becoming a self-sufficient aspect of this country, then we need to stop talking about it. There is nothing no more we can do. I gave you an alternative with wind energy and 178 acres of land that might be usable for agriculture. If you listen to what I said earlier, the East Coast is available. And maybe we should take some of the money that is presently in the enterprise support program and help people. Help them do agriculture. Help them in their back gardens. I mean, look, Denisio Wyatt should get his land. Let's cut the nonsense. We know the issue. I will not call the names today, but if by the end of January, Mr. Wyatt cannot get his land in St. Peter's, we're going to talk about it publicly. I will dedicate some time to indicate who the players are and how this works. Because politics is at stake here. This is not politics, this is politics. And that's unfortunate. But again, like I said, let's hope the people will make good use of the opportunities that are going to be granted to them when this government wakes up and takes some of the money that is sitting in the trust fund and put it among their people, give them an opportunity to become entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs in agriculture, entrepreneurs in fisheries, entrepreneurs in the weed business. Yes, entrepreneurs. We don't need people from abroad to come and do this for us. We can do it ourselves. We can use some technology, I'm sure. That's maybe where investments can take place. But don't tell us we don't know how to do it, because we damn well know how to do it. We very often, like Susie Camellia said, we have a bad self-image. We always believe we are no good, we're not good enough. Others got to come and do it for us. We got to get off of that nonsense and start moving forward the right way. You know, I don't know what more to say to people when it comes to seniors. We all, by the grace of God, are going to become old someday. And we are going to then depend on the young ones to take care of us. We're going to need their help in healthcare, in the Sint Maarten home, driving us around if we are still at home, because we can't do it anymore. But financially, we should also be taken care of. And we need to do something with the aggressive tax system we have at this point in time. That yes, many seniors profited if they had a mortgage from the write-off, and today are paying taxes on their pension. But in the same breath, what was good then is not good today. A loaf of bread used to cost a guilder then. Today it costs 2 guilder 50. But the money didn't change. That's why we have to find alternatives to deal with the people. I truly hope that we look at this from a different angle. If we look at the basket of goods and see if that also is working well for the seniors. In Curacao, there seems to be a serious issue with the basket of goods. By us, we have 70-something products in it, but I don't know if it is meeting its goal. I don't know, so I don't want to jump on it, but I think we need to look at it from a different angle also, especially from the seniors and the less fortunate. Bus fare. The bus drivers have said they're going to increase their fare. Have we thought of any way of helping seniors, especially, and those that hardly can afford bus fare as it is now? Is there going to be any discussion with the bus drivers to see how maybe government can supplement them or give them a stipend so that we can hold on to the prices for now that we have while we try to find a proper solution? We got to do something. We can't just sit back and wonder what's going to happen. Something will happen, but not in the good of none of us. So let us not just sit back and hope that all goes well. In Curacao, I liked the way they are approaching the tax holiday rentals. What they did in Curacao is that the government is making use of the BOP to start January 1st with a digital inquiry, making use of immigration, the arrival cards, where the hotel or the Airbnb must be listed, and you must attach a copy of the payment receipt. Why are they doing that? So that they can get information of who owns the Airbnbs or who is managing the Airbnbs. All the real estate agencies in Curacao, 60-something of them, have been reeled in by the tax office already, and they have been asked for the data of all the Airbnbs that they are managing, so that those people that are making money can now declare it, and the government gets its fair share. And they are even going to give breaks for those that are playing fair. So those that are reporting and paying, you'll get a break You get it for free, but you get a break, an incentive break. And those that are running and hiding, well, the fiscal is going to have to deal with them. The tax office is going to have to deal with them. But I think it's a great approach because, remember, Sint Maarten once tried the Airbnb approach, but because they couldn't get the information, they were kind of upset, and I don't think they even accepted the 5% taxes that Airbnb was willing to pay, the set amount. I'm not 100% sure. But I think these are the things that we have to look at a little better and see how we can deal with these things, because there is money to be made, and I think this is not the only solution, but it is a great solution to have an entity, and here we might be able to use the SWAB or somebody else. We don't have to bring in people to do this. The system is understandable, so get people that understand how to do this, get people that know how to ask the questions and what type of questions to ask, and let's get this done, people. Next week, I will come into a discussion about CBS, so the Central Bank of Curacao and Sint Maarten, on how to lower unemployment, inequality, and poverty according to the central bank. I will discuss this one next week due to time constraints today. But like I said, I think there are a lot of things that we really need to look at, and what we can do and how we can do them. Let me close today with the following. Someone sent me a recording, and it had to do with somebody complaining and stating that, oh, they don't understand why I complaining for. They don't understand. What I'm saying makes a lot of sense, but why you beating up on the government? And they know me as a little boy from Saunders, but I don't have the education. I never went to school really, and then my mother was a teacher. Now I don't know who the good person is, but you don't know me. I have a university degree. I have worked as the head of public works. I didn't get that job. I worked as a deputy plant manager in GB. I didn't get that job. I earned those jobs. I worked those jobs. And I come out here and I speak my mind and my opinion. And you mightn't like it because you have been indoctrinated with that Kool-Aid and tomfoolery nonsense that this government has been sharing for the past 3 years. I will expose what needs to be exposed. I will talk what I believe the public needs to understand and know. And if you don't like it, God bless you. I will still respect your opinion, but as sure as hell ain't sharing it with you. But again, the media has made GB the story of the year. With all its ups and downs, the hacks and the courts, and all kind of other crazy things. When you look back at GB today, you will realize that GB is still in a serious fight for its life. Fuel is going through the roof. It's very expensive. The courts have told GB you cannot dismiss Mr. Temer without going through the proper procedures, which is the courts, asking for the courts to deal with the dismissal. In the meantime, you have to pay him because he has to be able to make a living. Now that caught my eye. Why did it catch my eye? Because of Mikey Hyman. Because basically the same situation as Mikey Hyman. Mikey Hyman was fired because he so-called gave out confidential documents. He wasn't fired when he gave them out the first time. He was fired when the President of the Parliament asked him to bring them back because they had disappeared off the desk of the former president, and then they can book them in accordingly. Documents that the government already had. Documents that the Prime Minister of Sint Maarten said, giving them to the Council of Ministers and to the Parliament of Sint Maarten are not considered, giving them to third parties. For that, Mikey Hyman was fired. Not for the investigations, not for anything else. For that. Very specifically. And because he didn't tell them he was in jail when he was in jail. He had to tell them then. Yeah, man had no phone, you know. Down there, they believe that when you go to jail, everybody got a phone. Hey, how you doing, Brian? Hey, yeah, but I get locked up, but they hold me for something. I ain't sure what it is yet. Those are the reasons. Then they hire a man, goes in there, the government tells him, do not fire, we want to look at this, and he fires. Mikey goes to courts, and the judge says, he was still fired. Mr. Temer, one day before being heard, or the day of being heard, through his lawyer says, I, with immediate effect, resign as statutory director, and I terminate the contract or something like that. Going, pushing and shoving, the legal counsel of GB, which is the legal counsel of the minister also, of Romy, states that Mr. Temer terminated the contract, which means he also terminated the return clause. The judge says absolutely not. That is not true. Mr. Temer has a right to go back to his job. Just like Mikey Hyman should have had that same right. Because Mikey was dismissed as CEO, a statutory director, which means Mikey, in his job contract, he had the same clause that Mr. Temer has. But for one reason or the other, the one from Mikey was no good, and the one from Temer was good. See, I don't know how justice really works, but class justice, you could bet your sweet dollar was at play here. Definitely was at play here. But again, I'm happy for the court verdict, because this opens the door for Mikey and them to review this verdict and ask if they are measuring with different sticks in that courthouse in the center of town. You notice that up until this day, racism is a big thing in the kingdom, and we really need to find a way to stop it. We will never, ever eliminate it completely, but we can really put it on the back burner. We can push it so far back that people won't be wondering anymore what color of a skin you carry, but what character of a person you are. Because then we have truly eliminated racism. When the color of your skin doesn't decide anything anymore, but the person, your integrity, your character determines, your wisdom determines where you will land on your 2 feet in life. Let's hope that in the very, very, very near future, we have a new Minister of TIAT. I know a lot of promises were made to the 2 MPs supporting the government at this point in time, that in January, first order of the day was that the minister would be appointed. I truly hope so, because if we don't have a new minister this week or next week, we are going to have a serious instability issue once again in the government of Sint Maarten, and I hope that's not to be the case right now. This country needs stability, but again, like I said, tomfoolery is something that's going to burn this government every day of the year. As long as they don't remain honest with what they are doing, we are going to have problems, especially when you're dealing with people that are oriented on what's in it for me, and that's what's best for this country. Inflation is coming to our shores. Serious inflation is coming. You can see it already now, how America and Europe have been increasing their points at the Federal Reserves, which means making loans more expensive, and they are doing that to curb the inflation. If that's going to work is to be seen yet. We don't know yet, but the way it is right now, they look like they might have a little bit of it under control. And I say this because whenever America sneezes, we catch a cold. So if they hit a serious inflation in America, the Caribbean is in serious trouble. If in Europe inflation goes crazy, French Sint Maarten can feel it, and that would affect Dutch Sint Maarten right away. So for us, you see, it is a little more tricky than for some of the other islands. But again, like I said, it is what it is. So we got to be careful what's going to happen with this inflation, with the shipping, the fuel cost, GB's cost, etc., etc. With all of this being said today, let me wish everyone a great 2023 and hope all your dreams and wishes become a reality. But remember, if you do nothing, nothing will happen. Have a great day and a week, and take care of yourself. Please share this podcast and take some time, go to the Daily Herald survey and support my son's business, the Cocky Turtle. Best beach bar in St. Maarten.